African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Greetings, beautiful people. Katrina Johnson is the senior organizer for Voices of Community Activists and Leaders, Vocal Washington, and former law enforcement assisted diversion lead project manager. Katrina became a social justice and activist spokesperson for her family in June of 2017 after her first cousin, Shalina Lils, was killed in her home in North Seattle after police officers responded to the location to investigate a burglary Shalina had reported. Katrina is a member of Families at the Front Line. They provide a rapid response to help families across the United States who have lost their loved ones to the police use of deadly force. Katrina works with other families who have lost loved ones to the use of deadly force in Washington State, as well as local nonprofits working to improve policy on the use of lethal force, emphasize de-escalation, reduce instances of deadly force, and improve police-community relationships. Katrina has been a guest speaker in various cities and states on police reform, served as a panelist locally, nationally, and internationally on police reform and state-sponsored violence. Katrina organizes events and authored an op-ed for BET.com. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode of the African Father in America podcast with Simon Javan Okello. Today we are going to learn the story of Katrina Johnson. We are going to learn about why Katrina chose to say Shalina's name across the nation, what a father figure means to Katrina, how Black fathers are perceived and how we can change that narrative, how Black fathers can support each other considering the times we are living in where white supremacy is eminent and Black lives are not valued. And then we are going to talk about how you, the listeners and the viewers of the African Father in America podcast, can stay connected with Katrina Johnson. So with that, I also want to thank you all for subscribing to the African Father in America podcast on iTunes and YouTube. Remember to rate us on iTunes and leave your comment on YouTube. My sister Katrina, will you just share with us, a story from your childhood, around when you are 8 or 12 years old, that can paint the picture for those of us who are just learning about you today? A memory around that time that reminds you of maybe thinking that one day you'd be an activist advocating for, families that their loved ones have been brutalized and in many instances murdered by police.
Hey,
it's okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
A story from my childhood. I didn't have the greatest upbringing. Grew up in a rough area and things like that. So I spent my whole entire childhood surviving, really. But times. But there was just a lot going on, considering both of my, parents were, had substance use issues. But I just remember always being a leader. I never was a follower. I wasn't afraid to be on my own and doing my own thing. That's just kind of who I've always been. And, I like to have the last word a lot. So maybe in the work I do now.
Yeah. Wow. When somebody meets you on the street, they would think you're the, politest, kindest person that would not be standing up side by side alongside families that have been severely, severely impacted,
Yeah.
And, I just wanted you to share with me maybe somebody that you grew up with that recently, came to you and said, wow, I can't believe what you're doing. I could not imagine you ending up here, Have you had such an interaction recently?
I mean, we just marked the 3-year anniversary of Charlena being killed by the Seattle Police Department.
Right.
I just remember planning my cousin's vigil in literally 8 days.
Wow.
Gotten back from a trip from Vegas, working with families. Like, okay, I haven't heard from anybody. We probably got to do something. So I just, asked my cousins, Lena's siblings. I was like, what do you think? We should probably do a vigil. And I just kind of told my family members, like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll handle it and I'll get it all together. So when that day finally came around, and my family's like, I didn't know what it was going to be like. And there was like 12 to 1,500 people there supporting our family, and flying families in from all over the nation, including Jamaica. They was like, I can't believe you did this. So it felt really good. But, for me, it's just, it's bittersweet, because I know why I'm doing it and it's not really a good thing, but, uplifting her name, her life, and her legacy is important. So.
Right. So that kind of brings us to, why you chose to call your first cousin's name, across the nation, and just, narrate to us the story of how this began, the moment you received the news and where things are right now.
So I used nights at an emergency receiving shelter, helping women escaping the sex trade. I remember getting home that morning, June 18th, 2017. And I was up doing stuff, and then I was getting ready to go to bed. And I remember sleeping, and my wife just shaking me awake, telling me something happened, we got to go. Fine. And so she had to wake me up a couple times. And I just remember getting up, and my life from that moment has never been the same. Never. I went to school to become a nurse, and that's what I was supposed to be doing. And, we were heading up to North Seattle, because I just heard that Charlena Lyles, who was my cousin, she was killed. My cousin's telling me that they had a suspect in custody. So we're thinking this is probably some domestic dispute or something like that. Okay. We didn't really know. We didn't have any details. No one actually reached out to our family. I believe someone sent a Snapchat to one of Lena's kids of her mom's dead body. Wow. Some of us arrived up north, and I live about an hour and 15 minutes away, that we found out that she was actually killed by the police. My cousin, she was 30. She was pregnant, 15 weeks. She had 4 babies at home. She has 4 babies. One was away, so 3 of them were there. And she called the police for help to report a burglary. And you can see on the dash cam, the officers were laughing at my cousin as they were getting ready to enter the building. My cousin had some mental health concerns and issues and things like that. And shortly after I arrived, they shot her 7 times in front of her 3 babies. She is 5'3", 100 pounds, 15 weeks pregnant. And we're talking about 2 6'2", 200 and something pound men that claim my cousin had a paring knife, not a butcher knife, not a bread knife, a paring knife. And most of our family, we don't even believe that. They killed her. They shot her 7 times. Wow. 2 in the back, One right through the stomach, which went through the fetus and killed the baby.
Wow.
One in the arm. It just, yeah.
It's a lot.
So from that day, it's just been my new normal, my new life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for taking on this task. And it's like a lifetime mission. And I can't imagine what you've seen. You said you're 30 years old?
My cousin was 30 years old, 8 years old.
And you're 28?
I am.
Yeah. In your 28 years of life, you've seen a lot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm close to 40. I'm hoping I wouldn't have saw these sort of kind of things, but
I'm sorry, you said you're 38 or 28?
38.
Oh, you could have just left it at 28.
No, I'm 38. I've got an 18-year-old baby.
Wow, I could not tell that. Yeah, well, yeah, I just appreciate you for all, you've done. And I want you to just, paint for me a picture of, a moment, you've now taken on this task of, fighting for justice for Charlene's, Charlena's. And, now you've interacted with so many people within the US and globally who are also taking action, supporting families whose loved ones have been taken away in a, untimely because of police brutality. I want you to paint for me another picture outside of Charlene that confirmed to you that this is something that I have to tackle head on. I can't face it any other way.
I didn't realize how powerful and strong you have to be when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that there was a network of families all over the nation after this. And it became very clear to me after there were people protesting before we had even done anything around my cousin, New York and Atlanta and LA. And I remember finally meeting some of these people at different family gathering and events and things like that. And, I knew then it was big. It's bigger than just Charlena. Like, we got to help all families, right? We are strong, and we lean on each other at various times, and we support one another in whatever we're doing for our loved ones. We are bonded together forever. It's a family that nobody wants to be in. And the only way to get into this family is to have your loved one killed by the police, their blood spilled in the street. It doesn't matter whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're indigenous, whether you're Latinx or whatever. You're a family member. Your loved one's blood was red and was spilled in the street, just like my loved one's blood. It was red and it was spilled as well. And there's unity in that. There's power in that. And there's also a general understanding, because my warrior sister isn't gonna wonder why I'm crying or feeling some sort of kind of way, because they already know. And, the reality of the situation is we're not even fighting for our loved one. We're actually fighting for everybody else that hasn't experienced what we experienced to never know that pain that we live with and we wake up with every day. We never want people to know that. That's why we do what we do. And we are just so glad that more people are joining the fight that families have been doing. We are the experts. We are the front lines of anything and any action that is going on when it comes to your loved one being killed by the police use of deadly force.
Right. Police brutality also happens in Kenya, where I come from originally, and the African Father in America podcast is being watched and listened to by people back there, and also people, yesterday I was interviewing an activist from Brazil who is covering the destruction of the Amazon forest. His name is Victor Moriyama. And he was just telling me how he's willing to die for the work that he's doing, and I imagine that that's the case with you. Like what you've seen is just unparalleled. I wanted you to paint a picture for families in Kenya who have also been impacted by police brutality, and families in other parts of the world who have been impacted by police brutality, and just describe to them, for example, how it is like to be a part of this large family, and maybe give us an example of something that has impacted you a lot since you started interacting with the families are the frontline movement.
So I think I would probably say that the biggest thing that I could probably paint is no matter where you are, you can always reach out to and count on a family member, sometimes before your family, sometimes before your friends and all that. And you have somebody that really understands. There's no better, in this kind of work, there's no better thing than to have somebody understand exactly what you're saying and exactly what you're going through, although they change a little bit. And you always have somebody to bounce ideas off of, or what the next steps will be, what should I expect? And you get that from families. I think that for me, I went to Jamaica. I went to Kingston, Jamaica, maybe about 2.5 years ago. And I went with Amnesty International, and they were doing a Rights to Right campaign. They were like, hey, I see you've been doing all this work. Would you mind coming to Jamaica for police reform? And I'm thinking, okay, sure, I'll go. And they asked if I would speak at the University of West Indies. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. When I got to Jamaica and I was in the airport, they were like, what are you here for? I was like, oh, I'm here for business. I'm here to, talk about police brutality and police reform. They're like, oh, that doesn't happen in our country. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's why I'm here. And I was like, oh gosh, are they going to let me in? And I think the solidarity from that trip that I made with Shakelia Jackson, whose brother Nakia Jackson was a cook. He had his own restaurant, and he was shot in the back several times by the police. And I think when you just are willing to be there for other people, and share in their pain, in their purpose, in their victories, they'll also be there for you when you need them. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that families could expect. And, if you call somebody, I wouldn't be surprised if people would make their way to Kenya or wherever else to make sure that they can support your family in any sort of kind of way. And that's what being a part of this family would entail, is support. And Families Are the Front Line it started as a campaign to really just help families. Because, not every case is a high profile case, but their loved one still matters. And we want to amplify those loved ones whose cases aren't high profile, as well as the ones that are. But when they're not, there's a lot more work that you have to do to get one's narrative out there. And that's what Family Are the Front Line is about. Helping families, with support and solidarity, being able to provide rapid response if you need somebody to help you do something like right away. Also being able to help you get your narrative together, because you need that for your loved one, because they always want to dehumanize loved ones and criminalize them. And so, and just, you know, a legislative toolkit, because sometimes you have to be able to change laws. You have to be able to, you know, change policies in order to protect other people from police brutality. And I think that families who are there can get support and get, you know, tools that they could use while fighting there.
Right. Wow. So many ideas are running through my mind as I listen to you. So we will definitely do a follow-up session, because I have other follow-up questions to everything you just said. And I also have people in mind that I have to connect you with. Now, I want you to share with me, you know, what a father figure means to you. You know, when I listened to you and when I was researching your work, you're just a solid human being. And I'm just curious how any father figure played a role in molding who you are today.
I didn't really have my dad around when I was young. You know, for various reasons and things like that. So I didn't have my dad, but I had my grandpa for a while until he passed away from a heart attack. And just the way that he would always be there and support my mom and support us, take us on camping trips and things like that. That's kind of the only like semblance of a father figure that I really had. I did have my dad later in life. You know, and that was really kind of dope, because we were both adults. Just like he was finally able to like be there and to apologize for not being there when I was younger, and to, you know, support me. And he helped fix my cars and things like that. He was a handyman and a mechanic and all, jack of all trades kind of guy. So that was really nice having him around for that sort of kind of thing. So, I mean, you know, somebody that's there to just like love you and take care of you unconditionally. There should be no conditions on love. And that's what, you know, I believe that my dad, when he was able to, and my grandpa provided.
Thank you. Now, you know, when I'm originally from Kenya, you know, so when I was moving to the US 10 years ago, I didn't know that, you know, here, once you get here, you're a black man, you know, you're not a Luo. I'm from a tribe called the Luo tribe. So if I were in Kenya, you know, if I say my last name, people would be like, this is a Luo man, you know. But here, you're a black man, and I could become a hashtag anytime, you know. And so this is something that also is related to a stereotype about black fathers, that we are absent, we are lazy, you know, and such things. Do you feel that this narrative about black fathers is true, and how can we change it? What are some things that, you know, the young men and black fathers who are listening to the African Father in America podcast can do to change what people think that we are?
I think the biggest thing that fathers can do is to be there, to show up and continue to show up, whether somebody is acknowledging that or not. I think that that's important. And I believe that, you know, for me, there's always this perception that Black fathers specifically aren't there a lot of times. And, you know, that narrative is true, but there's also another side of that. I have plenty of friends who are fathers and they're Black and they're there in their child's life every step of the way. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we had this kind of conversation in the barbershop one time. Mm-hmm. And I think that oftentimes there are a lot of men that aren't there, maybe because of they haven't dealt with their own trauma and things. But then there are some that are there, and those ones that are there just continue to be there and show up for your babies.
Right. It's so simple. Just show up and be there, be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to put ties on stuff, or they want to put, and sometimes relationships don't work out all the time between, women and men and things like that.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's a reason to prevent your children from seeing their fathers, holding the kids hostage or putting stipulations and stuff like that. I never did that, with my kid's dad. They both have different dads, and, I don't want to form an opinion of what the Black man is, you know what I'm saying? And that about their parent. I never did that with my kids.
Right.
I think that that's important, so that you don't devalue the other parent, but you don't make the kids feel like they are less than also.
Right.
And I think that that's a lot of times what happens, and we have to try to not do that.
Right. So then, what are some ways that, if you're sitting with a group of Black young men, let's say in Seattle or Tacoma, or even in Kisumu, Kenya, where I come from, what would you give them as advice for how they can support one another, especially now, we are living in a time where white supremacy is so eminent, globally, actually. If you look at the condition of Black people in India, in the Middle East, in the Middle East, the Kenyan women who went there to become maids or house helps, their passports have been confiscated and they're living like slaves, In Brazil, I learned yesterday that Black people are 56% of the population, but I was asking this photojournalist, he's white, so he's Brazilian Japanese. So I was asking him, what's the percentage of photojournalists in Brazil who are Black? And he said it's 2%.
Wow.
Can you believe that? So
wow.
So speak to our young men and just share with them, how they can support one another in this time.
We are definitely living in hard times right now. And what I would say to young kings is that you are valuable. You are worthy of love. You are deserving of love. And you demand respect. And you have to show up right for one another and hold one another accountable for what you do and what you don't do. And I think that it's important for, our young Black men to, one, stop killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
Hold each other accountable for the loss of life that's happening in our own community. And we do better. And tell us what you need so that we can support you to do that. And I think that's where it starts. And I think that, I would also tell them, like, it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And people just have to sit with that, because people think they always have to put up this facade, like they're big, they're bad. It's okay to have unhealed trauma, to have unhealed issues, but you just can't leave them there. You got to work on them. You got to talk to somebody about them. You can't keep that stuff bottled up because it'll damage you, and it'll damage you really bad. And, and you do things that, sometimes you wouldn't normally do had you not had all that compact trauma added onto you, because your very skin color, people think is a weapon, and I think that they just have to know that their lives actually matter. And I think that maybe they would do different if they know and can feel that their lives actually matter.
Right.
So that's what I would tell them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like you're speaking to me in this situation, but I'll let all the listeners of the African Father in America podcast digest that, and all our viewers. And I just want to, let you all know that today I was speaking to my sister, Katrina Johnson, who is the senior organizer for Voices of Community Activists and Leaders, Vocal, Washington. Katrina is a social justice activist, and she started doing this work in June 2017, when her first cousin, Shalina Lils, was killed in her home in North Seattle after police officers responded to the location to investigate a burglary that Shalina had reported. Katrina also, is a core member of the Families at the Front Line. And right now, I just want us to listen to how you can stay connected with Katrina and be engaged with her work. And we are going to then wrap up our conversation today.
So you can find me on Facebook under Katrina Johnson, Instagram under TreenBean17. People close to me call me TreenBean. And you can also reach me by email at Katrina at Defender, Katrina Johnson at defender.org. You can reach me at Trina at vocal, WA as in wa.org as well. And I'm pretty sure if you Google me, my number is everywhere, and it's literally my actual number. I will pick up the phone. Most of my stuff is under public disclosure requests from at my job and stuff like that. So if you went to the Public Defender Association and looked under Katrina Johnson, you would find me there too. So,
wow, thank you. It really means a lot to me that you made the time for us to talk today.
No problem.
Again, to the viewers and listeners of the African Father in America, I want to thank you again for all the support for the African Father in America podcast. Remember to check us out on iTunes and also on YouTube, and also follow me on Twitter at Okelo Javan and Instagram at Simon Javan Okelo. Thank you again for tuning in, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace and love.
African Father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African Father in